been an amazing harvest 2025. We're here in the last days. We picked Cab Franc and some Cab Sauvignon even last week and got the white grapes in. Things are fantastic. It's been a hot summer and then a little bit short on the water in the region, but they had enough, they had a well, and we compensated on this rocky hilltop really well, so delivered just the right amount of water. Beautiful. Canopy's still green. Things are in great shape. We've had such a good harvest, and I'm so delighted with what we did out here in the field. They did such a great job. Let's go into the cellar. We're in the next stage. The vintage is over, and it's a great one. I'll take you into the cellar, and we'll see what it looks like in the tanks. Morning Semillon juice sampling here. Every day we're watching the fermentation go through, and beautiful live dynamic process, beautiful flavor changes, and there's some sensory characters I'm looking for to watch the yeast life cycle, looking for anything off smelling, and particularly looking for all those yummy flavors, of course. Got a fresh sample out of the tank here. So the wine's still sweet, and get a nice little sample here, and we'll get a measure on this. This will give me the sugar concentration today. This one is 0 water, positive sweet sugar, negative, and this is just above 5, so it's 5.5, maybe 6% sugar remaining. So that's lovely. It was ticking away yesterday. So all's well with this. Semillon. All that incredible peaches and apricots and just big, ripe, scrumptious character. Nothing off, nothing sulfidey or strange smelling. It's one of our Barragan vinos. This is the basis of our rosé, and this is something that Jesus and Jose land right at the perfect balance of acid, sugar, and temperature. So we're dropping this down. We're under 10. We're driving down into around 32. We want to shut this down, and it's right near the edge. So we're just one degree sugar away, and it just smells. Whew! It's fantastic. So I'll get a sugar on this, see how much it's dropped overnight. About 12.5, 13. It was 14 last night, so we're not letting it run too far. It'll continue to run a bit more. We're going to hold these horses back, not let it get very much further down the line. I'm going to safely hold on. So there should be just enough light that you can see what I can see, which is all that prickling, sparkling, right there in that light zone. These yeast are charging away. So I'm going to get a measure. I'm going to hit this with sulfur, and that'll slow it down considerably. The cold sulfur, bentonite. So we know how many gallons are in these tanks by the inch. I'll measure down to the wine level. Here we are, 62 inches down. And now I clip this on, close the door. .56 inches. So we'll call that 64 inches of wine. And we have our gallons per inch. 20.6 gallons per inch, and now we know the gallons. 20.6 and 64 inches. 1318. All right. So that makes Suffer 130. All right, let's get 62 grams going. So I'm getting an accurate measure on my sulfur, the major, sulfides that we add to the wine, and it's 107 grams net. there on the plate, so I'm just gonna confirm. So I'll measure that. I want actually 80, so I'm gonna take a little less. 107, net 38. That's exactly what I wanted, right there. So, years ago, my first chem ad, I was given this duty to add sulfur, add 10 parts per million, just a little top off, a little touch, final touch, to a big 4,000 gallon tank of the best Cabernet in the house, Woodward Canyon's Cabernet, and ready to bottle next week. I was working with a winemaker, we did all the numbers, and cool. So he's like, go ahead and make that addition. I'd done some other ones and everything was fine. I was new out of school, hadn't gone to wine school, but I knew how to do math and I'd done some simple chemistry. So I went and did it and ran it out, did the math twice, figured it out, went out and measured things up and measured out, and I had a half a bucket of sulfur. But this is how much sulfur I'm gonna add to this tank. Now this is the tank half as much, and I'm gonna add 100 parts per million. I was told to add 10 parts per million to a tank twice as large. You can do the math in your head really quickly. It's not much sulfur. So I measured out a half a bucket of sulfur powder. Measured out diligently, right down to the gram. Filled up a bucket like this with sulfur. And I thought that was 10 parts per million for the tank. And as I walked across the yard, going over to the tank, I passed by the winemaker and who said, you can add that sulfur? I said, yep, there it is. And he said, great. He looked in the bucket and he said, you're gonna measure that out, right? And I said, yep, I did. That's the measure. And he looked at me and he went white. He just was like, he almost fainted. He's like, no, that's, no. You've got to measure that again. I'm like, no, I did. I totally measured that. That's 10 parts per million for 4,000 gallons. He's like, no, it isn't. Let me show you. And I almost added 100 parts per million and wiped out this Cabernet. You can't come back from that. And I did the numbers on my own. I felt I was right. I did them twice. And I did the same mistake twice. And not knowing proportion, having never done this before, I didn't know what enough kind of looked like. As you can tell, all these years later, that stuck with me like, whoa, don't ever make these final measures all alone. So I made these measures here, even on the computer with Rosie. Be like, does this make sense? Is this what you would do with the wine? Yeah, that's what I would do. Like, we're both really experienced, and I'm still gonna check. Because you can make an easy mistake and move a decimal point. And that's the end of that. Trying to spread it around because I can't mix the tank with the action of fermentation. Mix it around as much as possible. Okay, 67, we'll call that good. Cool, here's my SO2 addition. I get this mixed up very well. Just a bit of water, not much, about a bottle's worth. That's about all I need. Got a whole tank. Never want to dilute the wine very much. Make sure that goes crystal clear. This will be my addition to the Chardonnay. And here as the wine has gone dry, we want to protect it with SO2 and keep it away from oxygen, and stabilize the life cycle, the biology, so stabilizing the bacteria and the yeast. These are the sulfites on the labels, just a little bit of sulfites. These are 25 parts per million. Very, very, very small amount. And in fact, half of this will go out with the dead yeast before we even bottle, so there'll be even less in the wine. And it's actually really a temporary preservative. Get a sense of where we're at now. I've already tasted the lees, which are really lovely. Yeah. Savory, pretty fruit, complex lemony peaches and pears, beautiful Chardonnay. Grown on the hill right next to the muscadel. Beautiful acidity, freshness, poignant. Lemon lime, very good. All right. Touch of sulfur. And pour that in, and then I'm going to mix it by giving it a spin. You can see that the wine is starting to clarify here, a little bit light blonde. So it's starting to clarify, and the yeast is starting to settle down in this dark section. I'm going to mix that all up because at this point the yeast is really good for the wine, and it's going to add preservation and freshness and great character. So physically mix that up, give it a spin. There we go, I can see it's mixed already. I'm going to give it a good generous stir in the other direction. And nice way to get this wine all mixed up without any atmospheric air. For just a bit. Chardonnay, Chardonnay. Okay, bueno. Boom. Training Chardonnay.